Have you noticed that the moment you decide something absolutely has to happen, life suddenly turns into a fight? You wake up already tense, your mind running laps over that deadline, waiting for a message that never comes, or pushing a conversation that clearly isn't ready to exist. And the more you push, the more it feels like reality itself is pushing back. It's almost like trying to make a cat obey commands. It doesn't matter how much you plead, demand, or chase. It just ignores you and does what it wants. Life works the same way. The tighter you grip, the faster everything seems to slip away. Think of trying to hold water in your hands. You think squeezing harder will help, but instead, the pressure forces every drop through your fingers. That's what happens when you force life. You suffocate the very thing you're desperate to hold on to. Ask yourself, when was the last time sheer force actually gave you the outcome you wanted? That job you obsessed over, only to watch someone else get it. Probably the calm, confident person who walked in without desperation written all over them. Or that relationship you tried to save by clinging tighter, only for it to collapse even faster. Or maybe that creative project you pushed out of frustration, only to realize it felt flat compared to the work that came naturally. The truth is, forcing rarely works the way we imagine. If you look at the people who succeed consistently, there's something strange about their energy. They don't seem to be locked in a battle with reality. They don't look like they're forcing doors open. They carry themselves as if life is already on their side. It's not magic. It's not luck. They've simply figured out something most people never do. Life responds better to flow than to force. Let me break this down, because once you see it, you'll realize you've been making things harder than they ever needed to be. Most of us approach life as if we're trying to thread a needle on a roller coaster. Jittery, stressed, desperate to get it right, while everything feels out of control. No wonder it feels impossible. But what if the issue isn't that life is hard? What if the real issue is that you're creating the difficulty by trying to control what doesn't want to be controlled? Picture someone learning to ride a bike. The beginners who tense up, grip the handlebars until their knuckles turn white, and overcorrect every wobble. Those are the ones who keep tipping over. But the moment they relax, let the bike move under them, and trust the balance, something clicks. They're not fighting anymore. They're flowing. That's the secret right there. The more you try to micromanage outcomes, the more chaotic life becomes. The more you obsess over what might go wrong, the more likely you are to create exactly that. You're building resistance where none existed before. Think about the people you know who seem to glide through life with strange luck. Opportunities drop into their laps. They meet the right people at the right time, and everything appears to just work out for them. Most assume they're gifted or connected, but often it's nothing more than this. They've stopped forcing life to bend. They take action, yes, but they don't choke on every outcome. They don't act like every situation is life or death. Instead, they move with a quiet trust. They give their effort, and then they let life meet them halfway. Here's the paradox. When you're desperate, people sense it. Opportunities sense it. Even your own creativity pulls away from it. Desperation has an energy that makes others recoil. But when you're calm, steady, and quietly confident, the exact opposite happens. Doors open without you knocking them down. Let me give you a simple example. Ever try to remember a word that's stuck on the tip of your tongue? The harder you try, the further away it seems to drift. You strain, you stress, and nothing comes. But the second you stop caring, the moment you let it go and shift your focus, it suddenly reappears, effortlessly. That's how life itself works. Under pressure, things slip. In relaxation, they return. This pattern shows up everywhere. Money flows more easily when you're not suffocating it with desperation. Relationships feel natural when you're not clinging to them. Creativity arrives when you're at ease, not when you're wringing your brain dry at 3 a.m. Even your physical abilities, whether it's sports, music, or public speaking, perform better when you're relaxed instead of overthinking every movement. The people who understand this truth early are the ones who glide through challenges that break others. They're not superhuman. They're simply not fighting the current. They've realized that life has its own rhythm, and battling that rhythm only leaves you exhausted. But here's where it gets interesting. Society doesn't teach us this. Society preaches the opposite. We're told to hustle harder, to grind until our eyes bleed, to treat stress as proof that we're serious. We're conditioned to think that if we're not forcing things, we're being lazy. But what if all of that is upside down? What if the very act of forcing is the reason you're stuck? What if the real path forward is not through aggression, but through trust? This isn't about giving up. It isn't about becoming passive or careless. It's about learning the difference between productive action and counterproductive force. Productive action flows from clarity. You see what needs to be done, you do it, and then you let go. Counterproductive force comes from anxiety. You're so terrified of losing that you end up sabotaging yourself. Think of a musician playing something difficult. If they tense up, forcing every note, the performance sounds stiff and lifeless. But if they relax, trust their training, and let the music move through them, it transforms into something magical. Same song, same hands. The only difference is the energy behind it. And that right there is the hidden truth about life. The same actions, the same goals, can bring wildly different results, depending on whether you're forcing or flowing. Here's where everything flips upside down. The world teaches you that stress equals effort, and effort equals progress. From school, you're told that if you're not grinding, you're failing. From work, you're told that if you're not hustling, you'll be left behind. Even in relationships, you're told to fight for it or risk losing everything. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Much of that is backwards. Because the harder you fight to control everything, the more life slips out of your hands. The more you micromanage outcomes, the less control you actually have. The more you cling to people, the faster they run away. Forcing doesn't secure the future. It destroys it. And yet, we live in a culture addicted to forcing. Most people wake up already tense, rehearsing arguments that haven't even happened, worrying about problems that don't exist, obsessively checking for signs of rejection or failure. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, why things never seem to flow. What they don't see is that they're strangling life before it even has the chance to breathe. But look closer at the people who seem magnetic, the ones opportunities chase, the ones who move with quiet confidence. They're not stressing over every variable. They're not chasing every person. They're not trying to bend reality into submission. They're doing something very different. They're trusting, not blindly, not passively, but deeply. They act with intention, but they release the obsession over how things must unfold. They care, but they don't cling. They prepare, but they don't panic. And because of that, they move through life with a freedom most people never experience. Here's the paradox. The less you need validation, the more respect you gain. The less you chase money, the more opportunities appear. The less you try to control relationships, the deeper they grow. It's almost as if life is constantly testing you. Do you trust me enough to let go? Or are you still trying to force everything? Think about the last time you forced a situation. Maybe it was a conversation you tried to steer in your favor. Maybe it was a deal you pushed too aggressively. Maybe it was a creative project you forced out of desperation. How did it feel? Probably unnatural, stiff, pressured. And what was the result? Most likely disappointment. Now compare that to the times you let things breathe. The conversation where you simply showed up without trying to prove yourself. And suddenly everything clicked. The project you worked on with curiosity instead of desperation, and the creativity poured out of you. The opportunities that seemed to fall into your lap once you stopped chasing. That isn't coincidence. That's the difference between force and flow. And once you understand it, You start to see how much energy people waste solving problems that don't even exist. Half the things you're stressing over will resolve themselves if you give them space. Half the conversations you're dreading will never even happen. Half the fears keeping you awake at night will dissolve on their own. But when you force, you create the very resistance that blocks the solution. This is why the wisest people across history, from ancient philosophers to modern thinkers, have emphasized the same idea in different words. Let go and let life work with you. Taoism calls it wu-wei, effortless action. The Stoics call it focusing only on what's within your control. Psychologists call it detachment. Different names, same principle. Stop suffocating life, and life will move more smoothly. And here's the part most people miss. Letting go does not mean giving up. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you sit around waiting for miracles. Letting go means you give your best effort, and then release the obsession with how it turns out. You detach from outcomes without detaching from action. You do what you can, and you stop pretending you can control everything else. There's a massive difference between laziness and surrender. Laziness says, I don't care. Surrender says, I care enough to give my best, but I don't need to destroy myself trying to control what isn't mine to control. And that's where real power is born. Because once you stop gripping so tightly, you unlock energy you didn't know you had. You stop wasting hours obsessing over things you can't change. And suddenly you have that time and energy for things you can change. You stop burning bridges with your desperation, and suddenly people are drawn toward your presence. You stop fighting the current, and suddenly the river begins to carry you. It's not that life becomes perfect. Problems still exist. Challenges still arise. But you stop creating unnecessary resistance on top of those challenges. And without that resistance, everything feels lighter. Here's the irony. When you stop needing everything to go your way, things start going your way more often. When you stop clutching at plans, better opportunities show up. When you stop demanding life follow your script, life surprises you with something even better. This is the paradox of letting go. And the sooner you learn it, the sooner everything changes. So maybe the question isn't, how do I force life to work for me? Maybe the real question is, how do I stop standing in my own way? Because the truth is, most of your suffering doesn't come from life itself. It comes from your attempt to control it. The right opportunities won't require you to beg. The right people won't require you to chase. The right path won't require you to abandon yourself to follow it. And once you realize this, you begin to live differently. You move with intention, but not with desperation. You show up fully, but you're not crushed if things don't go exactly as planned. You stop gripping so tightly and suddenly life feels lighter in your hands. That's the path forward. To hold your desires lightly, to act with clarity, and to trust the rhythm of life, instead of constantly fighting against it. Because the more you force life, the less it works. But the more you trust, the more it flows. And if you've made it this far, I want you to remember one thing. The energy you bring to life is the energy life will bring back to you. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, gripping, or forcing, pause, breathe, step back, ask yourself, am I creating resistance right now? Or am I letting things flow? That one question could be the difference between drowning in stress and finally moving with life's current. If this message resonated with you, don't just let it pass by. Take a second to subscribe to this channel so you never miss more insights like this. And if you've ever experienced that strange paradox, that moment when things worked out the second you stopped forcing, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And of course, if you found value here, hit the like button and share this video with someone who might need the reminder that the harder you force life, the less it works. And the moment you let go, everything begins to change.